3 bone-chilling true horror stories that haunt you forever. In the shadowy corners of our world, bone-chilling truths fester like an unsolved riddle. Picture this, 3 tales that linger long after the last light flickers out. They pull at your heartstrings, twisting your gut with fear as you feel the chill of unseen hands creeping up your spine. You've heard whispers of ghostly figures in graveyards, of disturbed spirits walking among the living, but what if these stories hit closer to home? What if they're rooted in the very fabric of reality? Brace yourself as we peel back the layers of these terrifying truths. First up, the tale of the woman in the window. In a quiet neighborhood, a family moves into a new home, a charming place, but a shiver runs down their spines every night at precisely 3:33 a.m. That hour when the world is asleep, when shadows dance across walls, and something isn't right. The older brother swears he sees a figure in the window of the abandoned house next door, just standing there, staring. Every night, that same ghostly silhouette, whispering secrets of the dead. His parents dismiss it just a figment of an overactive imagination, but he knows better. The air thickens with tension when he realizes the figure isn't just watching, it's waiting. Then we have the story of the vanishing hitchhiker. A staple in the minds of weary travelers, this haunting tale echoes through deserted highways. A couple driving late at night picks up a young girl in a white dress, shivering in the cold. She's mute, but her pleading eyes say it all. They drive her home, their hearts racing with a mix of dread and compassion. But as they pull up to the address, the air turns still, heavy with anticipation. When they turn to ask her something, the back seat is empty, just the crisp night air and the unshakable feeling of being watched. Who was she? Why was she out there? And why does the house look eerily familiar? There's an unsettling tension brewing, a question that gnaws at you, dragging you closer to the edge of your seat. As the clock ticks and the shadows deepen, the stories climb higher, wrapping around you like a vice. Each tale is woven with threads of pain and fear, leaving you breathless, longing for the light. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now, swing your focus back to the third tale, the one that grips at your throat like icy fingers. The Curse of the Forgotten Doll. Most kids toss their toys aside, but this one stayed. Left behind in the attic, it's a porcelain figure with glassy eyes and a sinister smile, forever trapped in a cycle of sorrow. Each owner feels its weight, a growing darkness following them, clinging tighter with every passing day. Laughter turns to screams, memories to nightmares. Friends have warned, once the doll chooses you, there's no escape. As the darkness envelopes the room, a question looms larger than life. What happens when your mind realizes that horror isn't just a ghost story? It's real, it's coming for you. Stay close, the night is just beginning, and these stories aren't finished. The room crackled with anxiety, shadows slinking across walls like treacherous whispers. The stories hung in the air, each one a weighty reminder of the fear lurking just out of sight. But those were just tales, right? Nothing can stalk you when the lights are on, or so you'd like to believe. Deep in the woods outside a sleepy town, another story waited to be unearthed. This time, it involved a couple on a camping trip, drawn to the siren call of the wild. Mark and Lisa sought adventure, away from city distractions, but nature held darker secrets. Night had settled, and a bone-chilling fog rolled in, swallowing the familiar sounds of the forest. They huddled around the flickering campfire, warmth battling against the oppressive cold. But as the crackling flames danced, so did shadows at the forest's edge. Lisa caught a glimpse of something moving, her heart thumping like a drum. "Did you see that?" she whispered, eyes wide with fear. Mark frowned, glancing toward the treeline. Just the wind, he said, though unease settled into his gut. They tried to shake it off, but the forest felt alive, almost eager, uninviting. Later, as Lisa dozed, Mark noticed a figure standing just beyond the firelight. It looked almost human, with lanky arms hanging by its sides and a glowing gleam in its otherwise dark eyes. Something twisted in his stomach as he rationalized his fear. Just a trick of the light, he thought. But something didn't feel right. The pines whispered with wind as he drummed his fingers nervously, denying the primal instinct screaming for him to wake Lisa. The figure inched closer. It moved unnaturally, bending at odd angles. Mark shook on his seat, adrenaline flooding his system. What's wrong? Lisa stirred, rubbing her eyes. The moment she spoke, the apparition was gone with a rustle, leaving only a heavy silence and the bitter scent of something rotten lingering in the air. I thought I saw something, he managed, heart racing. Her gaze clamped onto his, searching for reality within his panicked expression. As the night deepened, sleep became elusive. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig pulled them back into alertness. Shadows grew longer, the fire crackled louder, and the sensation of eyes watching from the trees amplified their fear. Suddenly, the fire flickered ominously, and Lisa's breath caught. What if it's not just the woods? She whispered, her voice trembling. Something is out there. Just as she spoke, an eerie laughter echoed through the trees. It danced on the wind, rising and falling like a wave. Mark's heart pounded in his ears, a mix of terror and adrenaline. Who would laugh in the woods at this hour? He looked toward the darkness that cradled the trees. Was it a joke? Or was something truly sinister closing in? The laughter faded, replaced by a chilling silence. Lisa squeezed his hand, the warmth of her touch somehow grounding yet electric with dread. Then came the unmistakable sound, soft footsteps, crunching through the fallen leaves, drawing nearer, cloaked in shadow. Mark's throat tightened, battling the urge to scream. Every flicker of the fire flickered back before revealing yet another soft figure. It emerged slowly, face distorted, eyes sunken into its skull, wearing the remnants of what looked horrifyingly like a smile. What do you want? Lisa's fear morphed into desperation, her voice barely above a whisper, and with a slow, deliberate motion, the figure pointed a bony finger towards their tent, its grin widening unnaturally. Just then, the wind howled, and the world around them seemed to spin. The fire sputtered, casting eerie shapes on the trees, and then it happened, the world went dark. The flashlight flickered out. The laughter echoed back, this time, close enough to reach out and touch. They were not alone. As darkness enveloped them, the question surged like a tide: what had come to claim them in those haunted woods? Was it just a reflection of their own fears, or was something wicked lurking, waiting for the moment to strike? But there was hope, buried beneath layers of dread. Could they find their way out before it was too late? The night held its breath, and the worst was yet to come. The chill of the night wasn't just from the temperature. In the suffocating darkness, Mark's heart hammered in his chest. Darkness stretched, thick and oppressive, as if it had come alive to smother them. Lisa's grip on his hand tightened. There was an urgency in her eyes, wild with fear and disbelief. The figure remained hidden, just beyond the circle of their flickering firelight. All that was left was a looming terror enveloping them as their breaths formed clouds in the frigid air. The laughter still echoed faintly, wrapping around them like an unseen predator, waiting for the moment to pounce. "Mark, we need to get out of here." Lisa's voice cut through the silence, raw and jagged. Panic was setting in, and in that moment, fear outweighed reason. Okay. Let us grab our things and move to the car," he stammered, but his mind was racing. Where was their stuff? The tent felt like a trap, poised to swallow them whole at the slightest sound. Suddenly, there was a crash, a loud disturbance from behind the tent. Both their hearts leapt as Mark whipped around, the firelight casting erratic shadows that danced at the edge of his vision. What was that? Lisa gasped, her voice tinged with a near hysteria. "I don't know," Mark exclaimed, pulse racing as he peered into the thick veil of darkness. "Stay close." The noise came again, a series of stomps, heavy and deliberate, moving toward them. It felt like something very large was coming, something that didn't belong in the harmony of nature. Mark reached for the pocket knife he kept on him, hand trembling. But a part of him feared that whatever was out there couldn't be fought with blades. "Mark?" Lisa whispered, voice quivering as she instinctively pulled him closer. Before he could respond, a blinding flash of white light exploded from somewhere deep in the woods. They froze, eyes darting toward the source. It illuminated a tall figure standing at the edge of the trees, backlit against the brightness, shifting slightly as though it were contemplating its next move. "How did it do that?" Mark breathed, thoroughly shaken, and then it moved, a sudden jerk forward, darkness swallowing the light as quickly as it had appeared. Mark's instincts screamed louder than ever now, and without thinking, he grabbed Lisa's hand, pulling her toward the tent. "We can't. What if it's trapped?" Lisa protested, but he didn't stop. They stumbled into their tent, the fabric doing little to protect them from the world outside. Mark could feel his breath coming fast, quick and shallow, the corners of his vision darkening. The tent felt like a coffin, and he could almost hear the fabric threatening to tear away, exposing them to whatever was relentless in its pursuit. Through the thin layer of fabric, they could hear rustling leaves, the crunching of twigs, and that laughter closer now, echoing indecipherable words. It taunted them, mixing fear with a cold sense of dread. "Mark, what do we do?" Lisa's voice quaked, the reality of their situation weighing heavy. Outside, something loomed, testing the boundaries of their fragile sanity. "I don't know, but we can't just sit here," he shouted, forcing himself to breathe past the constriction in his chest. If they were going to make it out together, they would need to act. They rushed to the front of the tent, the laughs morphed into low growls, seething just outside. Panic surged in Mark's chest. "On the count of 3, we bolt for the car." "Wait, what if now?" he shouted, adrenaline pumping as he prepared for what lay ahead. 1, 2. The tent's fabric quivered as something scraped against it. Their hearts thundered, sinking in fear. 3. They ripped the entrance open and bolted into the night, faces pale with horror. But once again, the world around them was not as it seemed. Dread snaked in as the ground beneath them shifted like a living thing, pulling them into a twisted game of survival. They ran, deeper into the woods, but the hunters had become the hunted, and then they realized the car was gone. As they spun in a panic, all that faced them were shadows that loomed like dark spirits, whispering their tales of despair. What haunted them in those cursed woods? Were they just victims of their own fears, or had something older and more sinister awakened, hungry for prey? The question lingered in the air like a choking fog, and the night was just beginning. They stood frozen, the guttural sounds of the forest echoing around them. Mark's heart pounded in a deafening rhythm, drowning out everything but the fear coursing through his veins. The night was alive, but alive with what? He felt Lisa's breath hitch beside him, could sense her muscles tense as they both scanned the inky blackness surrounding them. "Mark, we can't just stand here," Lisa whispered, urgency coating her dread. "Where do we even go?" His voice cracked, frustration mixing with fear. The woods were a labyrinth, dark and unwelcoming. The way back to the tent, to safety, vanished in shadows. From behind them, laughter erupted again, sharp, menacing. It ricocheted off the trees, echoing into their very souls, swirling around them like a sinister breeze. They turned in unison, eyes wide, searching for the source. It felt like an unseen entity was watching, waiting for them to falter. I think we need to keep moving," he finally managed to say, his words shaky. Lisa nodded, clutching his hand as they stumbled into the dense underbrush, branches snapping underfoot, whispering secrets that shouldn't have been told. Each step deeper into the darkness felt like a reckless gamble. "Maybe we can find a road, or at least another campsite," he suggested, though part of him thought that was a far-fetched hope. Just then, a rustle came from the thicket beside them. They whipped their heads in unison, dread pooling in their bellies as the sounds grew louder. Something was following them, stalking them through the shadows. "Run!" Mark barked, instinct overriding any logic. They bolted, fear igniting their limbs. They dodged low-hanging branches, ducked beneath the weight of the darkness, every hurried footfall a desperate plea for escape, but the woods seemed endless. As they ran, the laughter morphed again, now layered with a mocking tone, a sickening repeat as if it were playing with them. "They're lost! They're lost!" The words resonated in the air, dark and taunting. Mark tried to push it all out of his mind, focusing on the path ahead. He led them toward a faint glow in the distance, trembling like a will-o'-the-wisp. "Look! There!" he shouted, pointing. The light flickered weakly, just ahead, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like salvation. They dashed toward it, praying it was the haven they desperately sought. But as they got closer, horror seeped back in. The glow revealed itself as a single lantern swinging in the breeze, perched on a makeshift podium of bone, twisted and grotesque. Grimy gnawed bones formed a crude outline against the flickering flame, a haunting reminder of those who had come before them. "What the hell?" Lisa gasped, drawing back as if the sight burned her eyes. "Mark, we need to go. Please." But Mark was captivated by the sordid display, reality shattering as the true nature of the woods began to sink in. They weren't just lost, they were intruders in a lethal game. The ground began to vibrate, low and rhythmic as if something large was making its way toward them. Shadowy forms loomed within the trees, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. Mark shook his head, trying to clear the horrific images crowding his mind, but every instinct screamed for them to run. "Run!" Lisa urged again, breaking through his stupor. They turned, but the path had changed. The trees, once an escape route, twisted into a disorienting maze, branches enveloping them tighter. The night was no longer just a backdrop. It was a character cruel, insatiable, and alive. "Do you hear it?" Mark whispered as he strained to listen through the chaos, feeling as though their time was slipping away fast. "Mark, there's no time." But he couldn't shake the feelings of being watched. They were puppets, and something was pulling the strings. They sprinted deeper into the forest, the stifling darkness swallowing them whole, and just like that, a blinding light erupted again, this time illuminating the figure lurking behind the trees. Mark's throat ran dry, seeing it clear, a ghoul with hollow eyes and a twisted smile, its mouth stretching too wide, lips curling back like an abandoned smile that promised nothing but doom. Together he whispered, adrenaline coursing through his body. But as he squeezed Lisa's hand, a sinister whisper floated through the air, they'll never leave. The weight of despair pressed down on them as they bolted forward blindly, hoping against hope that they weren't running into the final grasp of something far darker than they could understand. Would they escape, or would the woods claim them as part of its cruel narrative? The chase was far from over. They tore through the night, breathless and filled with dread. The laughter still echoed behind them, chilling their bones, a reminder that they were not alone in this twisted maze of trees. The sinister shadows were no longer mere flickers in the periphery, they had taken on form and shape, coiling around them like serpents in the dark. "Mark, where are we going?" Lisa cried out, panic inflating her voice. They were both disoriented, the night closing in tighter with each step. Every whispered rustle felt like an attack, every snap of a twig a death sentence. Just keep running," Mark shouted, desperation fueling his movements as his mind raced for a plan, any plan. But the fear was a thick fog, clouding every route, every decision. As they stumbled past the lantern, the ghoul's chilling visage burned in Mark's mind, a haunting that would forever stain his memories. What was that thing? Who had it belonged to? His chest tightened as if the night itself was grappling him, and the bones of the previous victims whispered in a sorrowful symphony, warning them of the fate that awaited if they didn't escape. Then they came to a clearing, bathed in a ghostly pale moonlight that penetrated the forest canopy. Mark felt a slice of hope, a glimmer that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back. But the fleeting sense of relief vanished like smoke as he caught sight of the ground littered with tattered clothes, some stained, others torn as if in a frantic struggle. "Mark, we shouldn't be here," Lisa said, her voice shakier than before. "No turning back now," he breathed, trying to maintain courage. But inside, fear gripped him, tightening its claws with each heartbeat. "We find a path through." Just as they began to move again, a deep, resonant growl echoed off the trees, an embodiment of primal rage. Mark's blood ran cold. He glanced at Lisa, her face blanched, eyes wide. "What was that?" she gasped. "Stay close." Mark tightened his grip on her hand, turning instinctively towards the sound. But whatever lurked in those shadows was more than he could have anticipated. Silence hung heavy in the air, a vacuum that stole their breath. Then the underbrush erupted. A massive beast leapt into the clearing, its eyes glowing a furious red, jaws lined with jagged teeth. It was feral and monstrous, an unearthly predator, the embodiment of the deep forest's perils, relentless and hungry. "Run!" Mark shouted, barely keeping it together. They turned, sprinting back into the thicket, heartbeats pounding in sync with fear. Branches clawed at them, tearing at their clothes and skin as they ran, but it was the echo of their relentless pursuer that drove them faster. They could hear its breath, hot and heavy behind them, a tangible threat that whispered of inevitability. Another turn, another twist, and then they were horizontal with the land, tumbling into a narrow ravine. "Mark!" Lisa screamed, but the words faded as they rolled, branches scratching against their skin like the grasp of unseen hands. They came to a halt at the bottom, gasping for breath, disoriented. The air was damp and cold, consuming them like a relentless tide. "Are we safe?" Lisa whispered, fear painting her expression, but the moment was shattered by the unmistakable growl echoing from above, the beast peering down at them, its gaze fixated with savage anticipation. "Keep quiet," Mark ordered, but the panic surged in his veins, making his voice tremble. They were trapped in an abyss, with their predator looming above, biding its time. The abyss felt alive, suffocating, the fear badgering at them with whispers of hopelessness. "Do you hear it?" Lisa muttered. But it was not just the growling. From the depths of the darkness came the terrible laughter once more, mocking, raucous. They'll never leave. Mark's heart dropped as reality crushed in around them. They weren't just lost anymore, they were part of something much darker, an eternal game where the pieces were made of flesh and bone. Just then, the earth beneath them stirred, and they felt the familiar thundering of footsteps. Mark. Lisa's voice trailed off, a stark realization setting in. But there was no escape now. The night had them in its suffocating embrace. What chance did they really have against an enemy that thrived in darkness, one that might just be waiting for them to make their final mistake? Mark's thoughts spiraled as he searched frantically for a way out, but what could he do when every direction only led deeper into the horror? The chase was reaching its blood-curdling crescendo. The growling intensified, a low rumble reverberating through the cold dampness of the ravine. Mark's chest tightened, the air thick with the scent of earth and something else, something metallic and sickly. He could see the silhouette of the beast, framed against the moonlight, its jagged teeth glinting like knives. "Mark!" Lisa pressed against him, her breath hot against his cheek, shaking uncontrollably. "What do we do?" His mind raced. Panic surged through him like an electric shock, but he forced himself to focus. "We have to find something to defend ourselves or a way out. That's it." They had to use their surroundings. Quietly, they turned, crouching low against the jagged rock wall of the ravine. Mark scanned the area, heart pounding in his ears. A glimmer caught his eye, a jagged piece of metal half buried in the mud. He lunged for it, dirt crumbling away as his fingers closed around the cold, rusty edge. "Something's coming," Lisa hissed, her voice barely a whisper. Mark held the metal tight, the weight of it grounding him against the rising tide of fear. From above, the beast's growl morphed into a snarl, low and menacing. The shadows shifted, and suddenly they were not alone anymore. Figures emerged, emerging from the darkness like phantoms, hollow-eyed beings, some barely clothed, their skin ashen, and twisted into grotesque forms. "Mark!" Lisa's voice faltered. The laughter from before twisted into a cacophony, melding with the growls, wrapping around them like a chilling embrace. "What are they?" "They look like Mark's throat went dry. Victims." The truth broke like shattered glass. They were in a place where hope died, where despair reigned supreme. Yet even in the darkness, a flicker of determination sparked within him. They were alive. For now, the clawing from above escalated. The beast had moved to the edge, sniffing the air, assessing them. With a primal instinct, Mark pushed forward, pulling Lisa along with him. "We need to move now." The twisted figures of the lost ones began to step closer, swaying, their eyes murky and lifeless. Mark felt a wave of nausea wash over him at their sight, but he couldn't stop. The metal piece felt like a lifeline in his hand as they stumbled further into the depths of the ravine. Suddenly, a shriek broke through the noise, a piercing sound that cut through the layers of darkness, echoing off the walls. Mark turned, eyes wide, caught between the advancing figures and the beast that still loomed above. The laughter intensified, drowning out the fear that clawed at his insides. "Mark!" Lisa gripped his arm hard, pushing him to look at the shadows flanking them. "They want us." He could feel it. The air shifted, the atmosphere thick with an impending sense of doom. The crowd around them grew closer, hungry anticipation in their empty eyes. Whatever fragments of hope they had were grinding away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of desperation. "No, we can't be like them." Mark spat, feeling the weight of despair pressing against him. "We're getting out. Come on." They turned to run, but the figures lunged. Lisa stumbled, and Mark barely caught her, barely keeping them both upright. For every second they faltered, the laughter danced around them, taunting and relentless. The air buzzed with tension as the growls grew louder, merging with the spiraling chaos surrounding them. They had stumbled into a nightmare, a game they didn't understand, with rules they were never told. Mark could feel the beast's breath, hot and pungent, filling the air around them. It was only a matter of time before they were out of time. As they plunged deeper into the abyss, the ground began to shake, and an unseen terror threatened to swallow them whole. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. Was it desperation? Or were they playing into the hands of something far worse? Something that was waiting to reveal its true form? The ground trembled beneath their feet as Mark and Lisa stumbled deeper into the ravine. The shadows closed in around them, twisting into forms that made Mark's skin crawl. The laughter of the twisted figures echoed, a chorus of madness. It felt as though the very walls were breathing, pulsing with a life of their own. "Keep moving," Mark urged, adrenaline pumping through him. They ducked around jagged rocks, desperation fueling their every step. Behind them, the suffocating mass of lost souls drew closer, their mournful wails intermingling with the growls from above. Lisa's breath hitched. "Mark, where do we go?" The fear in her voice cut through the chaos like a knife, and he could see her resolve faltering. "Forward. There has to be an end to this nightmare." He gripped the metal shard like a talisman, though he was all too aware of how ill-equipped they were to face whatever lay ahead. Suddenly, the beast above screeched, a furious, bone-chilling sound that echoed through the ravine. It made the ground shake harder, and Mark felt the breath in his lungs catch. He glanced back, and the sight of the beast's glistening eyes sparked a new wave of fear. Panic clawed at him, but there was determination too. They were alive. As they pressed forward, the glimmer of moonlight flickered weakly through the trees, illuminating a narrow opening in the rocky wall. "There!" Mark shouted, hope blooming inside him. They raced toward it, heart pounding, rage at the despair threatening to swallow them whole, but the laughter crescendoed, rising in a terrifying symphony of hunger. The twisted figures lunged, reaching out with skeletal hands as if testing the barrier of their reality. Mark felt the cold brush of fingertips on his arm, and he jerked away, dragging Lisa along. "Run! Don't look back!" he yelled, and they dove into the narrow crevice, squeezing through as the cacophony grew behind them. The space opened up into a larger cave, one where darkness pooled like thick ink. They fell to the ground, panting, fear and exhilaration mingling in their chests. Mark staggered to his feet, scanning the shadows for any signs of the beast or the figures. "Is it gone?" Lisa's words were barely above a whisper. "I don't know." Mark strained his ears, listening to the silence that had replaced the noise. The growling was dulled now, a distant reminder of the terror outside. "Look!" Lisa pointed to a small, flickering light in the far corner of the cave. It was a weak flame, but it beckoned with warmth and safety. "We should go towards it." Mark nodded, cautiously moving forward, hand gripping the metal shard tightly. As they approached, the light flickered higher, revealing strange symbols carved into the walls around them. Mark's breath hitched. Some looked like warnings, others like maps etched by frantic hands in their final moments. This looks like a warning," he said, his heart sinking. "Or instructions." "Instructions for what?" Lisa asked, eyes wide. Before he could answer, a shadow rippled across the wall behind them. Mark turned slowly, dread pooling in his stomach as he faced the edge of the darkness. The figures began to materialize again, their hollow eyes fixed on him with an intensity that felt like a weight pressing down. Lisa's voice trembled, fear igniting in her gaze. He stood frozen, caught between the flickering light and the swarm of lost souls drawing closer. The scent of decay filled the air, mingling with his rising panic. We need to get that fire going," he stammered. "Maybe it can keep them away." As they scrambled for twigs and dried leaves, the figures inched closer, stretching their ghostly hands toward the light. But that flickering flame seemed weak, teetering on the brink of being snuffed out. A sudden scream ripped through the cave, leaving them breathless. Both Mark and Lisa turned to find an apparition among the figures, a face they recognized, lost to despair. "Help!" it whispered, the voice echoing through the void, chilling Mark to the bone. His heart raced, a mix of horror and recognition flooding him. "No, we can't get close." "But..." The faces of the lost beckoned him, their desperation clawing at his resolve. What if there was a way to save something? The moment hung heavy in the air, a thick tension that could snap at any second. Was it courage, or madness, that pushed him to reach out? And in that darkness, as hesitation washed over them, they stood at the brink of a choice, a desperate gamble in a world stripped of hope. What would they uncover within that flickering light, salvation or ruin? The answer danced just beyond reach, waiting to reveal itself. The air in the cave felt cold and oppressive, wrapping around Mark and Lisa like a shroud. Each breath they took seemed heavy with the despair around them, and the flickering light ahead appeared to pulse in time with their rapid heartbeats. Mark felt a bead of sweat trickle down his forehead, and his grip on the metal shard tightened, a feeble attempt to steal back some control. "What if we try to communicate?" Lisa suggested, her voice barely more than a whisper, trembling as she squinted into the murky gloom. "What if they really can hear us?" Mark felt a surge of frustration. "You want to talk to them? They're not real." His words came out sharper than intended. But the lost souls were undeniably real, their hollow eyes glistening with a haunting sadness that tugged at their very humanity. The scream echoed again through the cave, and the familiar face twisted in agony pushed into Mark's mind. "We've got to keep the fire alive, Lisa. That's our priority. No distractions." But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. What if the flickering flame proved useless against the growing tide of shadows? As if sensing his turmoil, the figures advanced, whispering their haunting chorus, a blend of yearning and regret that reverberated in the hollow spaces of his soul. Lisa's voice was a thread, barely holding them together. "We can't keep running. Maybe we have to confront them." A faint gasp escaped his lips as he looked at her. confront them? Lisa, they're not asking for a hug. They want the words lodged in his throat like a stone. There's something in our past, she said suddenly, eyes gleaming with an emotion between fear and resolve. Things we regret. What if they want us to face it? To acknowledge what happened? The idea struck him like a jolt. Memories rushed back, the weight of their shared mistakes clanging in his brain like a warning bell. They both bore guilt, heavy burdens that were easier to shove aside than face. But could the shadows be the key to moving forward? Before he could grasp the implications, the shadows lunged, their ghostly forms swirling faster around them, growing denser, forming a swirling vortex of despair. They clawed at Mark's very essence, and he took a step back instinctively. Mark. Lisa grasped his arm fervently. We can't let them overwhelm us. We have to remember. Suddenly, the flickering light brightened, illuminating the cave walls with an eerie glow, exposing the symbols carved into them. Mark's heart raced as he realized they were words that felt like fishhooks in his thoughts, tugging him toward the dark corners of his memory. Face it, Mark, Lisa urged, her voice barely cutting through the rising tumult. We have to confront our demons, or we'll be just like them, lost. But as the figures pressed outward, their faces merged, twisting into familiar forms that made Mark's stomach churn. Friends they had betrayed, promises broken, the weight of every moment they regretted flooded back. Tell them you're sorry. Lisa urged, face pale, fear written all over it. We have to say it. Mark trembled, fear mixed with an impatient anger. And what if it doesn't work? What if it makes it worse? The shadows thickened, pressing against them, suffocating in their desperation. Their whispers grew louder, becoming a deafening chorus of pain and longing. Now, Mark. Now. Lisa cried, putting her hands on his shoulders, desperation sparking in her eyes. In that instant, he felt so small, utterly pulled at the seams of his strength. Mark took a deep breath, letting the swirling memories flood over him like the wave of the ocean. Maybe this was their fight, one they couldn't escape. I'm sorry. He shouted, feeling the conviction swell in his throat. I didn't mean to hurt you. The cave trembled violently, shaking them to their cores. The fire exploded into a radiant blaze, illuminating the cavern in a harsh light. Shadows recoiled momentarily, screeching in both anguish and fury. Mark's heart raced as he realized, whatever was about to happen, this choice would change everything. What awaited them in the wake of their confrontation? Would they uncover a path to redemption, or would the shadows consume them fully? The cave quaked beneath them, and the tension in the air thickened. Time seemed to slow. With every breath, the decision bore down on him. In the heart of that cavern, at the edge of salvation or doom, they stood poised for the next chilling revelation. What horrors did they truly need to face to escape this nightmare? The shadows writhed and twisted around them, the temperature dropping further, sending icy fingers crawling down Mark's spine. The blast of light from the fire created surreal silhouettes on the cave walls, mocking figures that danced and laughed with grim joy. Mark felt the laughter creep into his bones, a deep mirth that belied the horror of their situation. Mark, focus. Lisa's voice snapped through the fog of dread. Her eyes, wide and glistening with urgency, anchored him. We have to keep talking. They want us to feel it all. But something within his chest quaked at the thought. Facing their past seemed less like a choice and more like a death sentence, staggering into the jaws of something they couldn't control. How could he possibly lay bare his sins before these tortured souls? The familiar faces loomed again in the darkness. Jake, Amanda, the laughter that quickly turned to accusation. You left us. They accused silently, their eyes hollow voids. That he was immobile, paralyzed by the truth that clawed its way to the surface. The heat of guilt scalded him, making him breathe hard. Then he remembered Lisa, her strength fortified by a shared despair. I betrayed them. He shouted, as if the act of screaming could start to dissolve the fear. But it wasn't just me. It was never just me. The cave shuddered, the shadows instantly exploding with rage, swirling like a storm above their heads. Do you think they care? A voice whispered just behind him, so close he felt its cold breath. It's not about who betrayed who. It's about who was left behind. No. Mark roared, charging against the encroaching shadows, but he felt a gust of icy wind pushing him down, making the stone beneath him feel like ice shards. They just want to make us suffer, Lisa. We can't let them win. But Lisa stepped forward, a fierce determination etched across her face. You need to let it out. Tell them the truth. She raised her arms as if to shield him from the pain. Something in her exuded strength, and for a moment, he could see her spirit soaring above the chaos. Listen. She shouted into the swirling vortex. We didn't know how to save you. We were scared and selfish. Surprisingly, the shadows began to hesitate, their frenzied activity unable to maintain momentum. The chaotic whispers shifted to soft moans, a change in the undertone that turned the air electric. Mark seized the moment, grasping onto the slender thread of hope. I didn't mean for it to end like this. He bellowed, feeling the warmth of truth flow through his veins alongside the fear. I regret every decision, but I will never forget you. The cave fell into a profound silence. Neither sighs nor screams filled it now, only a heavy, expectant pause. Then, as though drawn by the sincerity of their revelations, the shadows began to condense, pulling tighter as if waiting for a signal. What do we do? Lisa's question trembled in the stillness that followed, creating ripples through the air like a pebble in a pond. Her face was pale, yet hope flickered in her eyes. Maybe we can forgive them, Mark whispered, trembling hands reaching out toward the tightening shadows. They were so close now, and he could almost feel the warmth of the memories flooding back to him, the laughter, the friendship, the light before the dark. Suddenly, the figures shifted, their forms reshaping into outlines that looked less hostile and more pleading. Mark's breath caught in his throat. Are they trying to connect? Just then, a soul with the familiar face of Jake stepped forward, his lips moving silently, anguish carved into every line. It was an appeal, a reminder of what was lost but also what they could still salvage. We can't let this end here, Lisa murmured intensely, capturing his gaze. If we dig deeper, we might, but before she could finish, the cave trembled once more, plunging them both into darkness deeper than night. Shadows swirled anew, engulfing them as a chilling cacophony of voices rose, drowning out their thoughts. Were they reliving their own demise? Had they awoken something far worse than regret? As silence fell, once more, tension wrapped around them like a vice. Their hearts pounded as they stood on the precipice of uncertainty, questioning whether darkness or illumination awaited them in the void. What truth did the shadows crave, and could facing it finally free them, or would they remain trapped forever in this abyss? The darkness pressed down like a weight, wrapping around Mark and Lisa, squeezing out every shred of light. They stood on the edge of despair, hearts racing, breath shallow in the oppressive atmosphere. All we have is each other, Mark murmured, clenching the piece of metal tightly, feeling its rough edges bite into his palms. We have to face this together. Whatever happens next, we'll do it side by side. Lisa nodded, her determination shining through the fear. Yes. No matter what that might mean. We have to find a way to break this cycle. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into a chorus of voices that echoed through the cave. They were familiar, gripped with pain and sorrow, each voice telling a fragment of the past. Mark's heart raced as he felt the whispered memories wash over him like ghostly fingers caressing his skin. In the confusion, he caught pieces of accusations and regrets swirling in the darkness. It was deafening, but he forced himself to stand firm. Closing his eyes, Mark began to recall those lost memories, letting them come to the surface. I'm sorry. He shouted, his voice breaking the tension. I'm sorry for the times I turned away. For the times I didn't care when I should have. For the pain I caused. The shadows wavered, pulsating as if they were absorbing his words. This time, as Mark forced the memories free, he felt Lisa's presence beside him, fueling his resolve. "We never meant to leave you behind," she added, her voice matching the intensity of the moment. "You were all our friends. We should have fought harder." Another soul emerged, a familiar face caught in the web of sorrow. The apparition of Amanda, eyes wide with longing, flickered in the shadows. "Don't run away from us. We want to be free." The atmosphere shifted, a wave of warmth combating the frigid cold that had held them hostage for so long. The shadows shrieked, beginning to recoil from the brightness of their collective regret. "Please forgive us," Mark yelled, desperation pulsing through every syllable, the words raw and vulnerable. "Let us show you how much we cherished you." With those words, Mark and Lisa focused on that warmth, holding hands, their hearts synced in unison. Instead of retreating, they pressed onward, toward the light that flickered in the cave, drawing both the souls and themselves closer together. The shadows converged, swirling around them, not as enemies but as echoes of memories yearning for release. The air grew electric with emotion. Mark tightened his grip on Lisa's hand, feeling their connection spark brighter. As they stood together at the edge of that light, the figures began to morph. The accusing, twisted expressions softened, revealing the faces of friends lost, filled with pain but also with understanding. "We forgive you," Amanda's voice floated through the air, a soothing balm to their raw wounds. "Just remember us and live." With a blinding flash, the light engulfed the cave. A powerful surge coursed through both Mark and Lisa, lifting the oppressive weight of fear. Those voices faded, leaving behind a sense of peace, a liberation from the past. "Are we free?" Mark gasped, the weight of despair still hanging in the air but now lightened by hope. "I think we are," Lisa whispered in awe, looking around as the cave transformed, brilliant colors painting the walls, each hue reflecting the essence of the lost souls now at peace. With newfound clarity, they stepped out from the visions of the past, following the beckoning light to the cave entrance. The fresh night air hit their faces, a sweet sensation washing over them like a reviving tide. They emerged from the woods, glancing back at the place that had held so much darkness. But now, it felt different, almost welcoming, like a chapter closed with love. They could finally breathe, feeling lighter, a closure that had eluded them for so long. "I thought we'd never get out," Lisa breathed, relief flooding her voice. Mark nodded, a smile breaking over his face. "We did it. We faced it together." Tears, remembered, not of sorrow, but of release, fell down their cheeks. They had lifted the weight of the past, embracing the present, ready to forge a new path together. The darkness had been powerful, but hope was stronger, and just like that, they walked away from the haunted woods, stepping into the embrace of dawn, a new beginning. Now, if you felt the pulse of this story, if it sparked something inside you, this is your moment to support us. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we have in store for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others who need to feel this intensity. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just went down. Your insights make our community vibrant. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion. Your support means everything. Let us keep our story alive together.